When I was growing up, people used to ask me what I wanted to do with my life, what I wanted to be. I never wanted to be a targeted individual.
This video is not meant to judge or discredit, only to analyze and speculate what could be happening in a situation like the case of Stephen Marlowe, who was sentenced to 45 years in prison for slaughtering his neighbors.
Welcome to another show. Unfortunately, we're going to be taking a look at a tragedy. And I think all the people involved in this scenario are victims. And it's the perfect illustration of why I make videos, why I talk about mind control, gaslighting, all the techniques involved in harassment, what happens to the victims, syllogistic reasoning and conclusions. Why it's very important to have strict criteria when deciding if something is harassment, right? And what kind of frustration and tensions build up in the targeted individual and all that stuff. This case involved, elderly people and a 15-year-old girl who was killed because the whole accusation revolved around the fact that they were using telepathy or some type of technology or something to inject thoughts into Stefan's brain or into his thinking or whatever, and turn him into some type of, active shooter, okay? And there are a lot of people that deal with electronic harassment or something that they perceive as electronic harassment. I've talked about the fact that, if you're dealing with V2K or something that's demonic, it's going to be pretty tough to figure out which is which on something like that, okay? You have to have very strict criteria, and you have to know that at the very least you're being manipulated, and there's a motive behind it. And I've talked about that before, that when you are getting harassed, whatever it is, there's a motive, and it's bigger than just yanking your chain. They want to get you emotional, they want to freak you out, and eventually they want to get you to do something either to yourself or other people. And I think this case illustrates that very reality. I have in the title of the video, Gangstalking Psychosis. Am I suggesting that Mr. Marlowe was not a targeted individual? No. Is it a new diagnosis? Well, I don't know. It could be. I've already mentioned that targeted individuals are harassed in a lot of different ways just in this video. And, there's going to be obvious effects from that stuff. Okay, and psychiatry is used to diagnose people, in my opinion, that could be suffering from a lot of different things, and those things are ruled out, just like the people who reject the spiritual application to gangstalking. When you deal with psychiatry, at least most, the mainstream stuff, it doesn't involve any of that. If somebody is hearing voices, and they walk into a psychiatrist's office, unless it's a Christian psychologist or something like that, they are going to be told that their brain is misfiring, or they have some type of mental condition like schizophrenia or something, and they need to take medication, and they're just hallucinating. Okay, it's not really there. There's going to be no, possibility of anything other than that. Okay, I believe that there are things that line up with, hallucination and stuff like that can happen when someone gets maybe, some type of brain infection or they're suffering from something. But I think it's really, really rare. I believe that some of those things can happen to people, but, not the way that is described in psychiatry, okay? Like I've talked about before in videos, if someone was hallucinating because they had something in their brain that was malfunctioning, why would it be localized, right? Why wouldn't the neighborhood cat be trying to talk to them? Why wouldn't plants or trees or something like that? Why is it always, something along the lines of workplace harassment or, something that involves a particular individual or something like that, or has a particular theme involved in it. That just doesn't make sense. If you're hallucinating, in the true sense of a hallucination, it's going to be in a lot of different places, and it's not going to be localized. It's not going to have a theme that goes along with it, and besides that, it's not going to be something that would fit the criteria of a mass hallucination that a bunch of people were just having. Right? Because that's what goes into this whole thing, that people who are considering themselves targeted individuals are having some type of mass hallucination, and I don't believe that. So getting back to the point, when you're dealing with psychiatry, as an example, they'll rule out the demonic realm or V2K or whatever, and is that really going to solve anything? I don't think so. Right? We are basing our proposition and diagnosis on a very limited spectrum of criteria that I don't even think applies in a lot of the cases. And I think a lot of that stuff is, possibly government harassment or something that's demonic. When you look into some of the stuff that's out there that people are saying exists in the technological realm, you have to kind of take their word for it. Right? Like the DNA frequency resonance that is, kind of beamed out there with 5G technology. And, as long as they acquire your DNA, now they can read your thoughts. And, oh, look, we have the signature of the word spatula. They must be thinking about breakfast again. And you get all these things. Do I believe that there is enough evidence to say that stuff exists? I don't think there is. And I think the government's probably working on stuff like that. But I think it's more of a way to explain how one person can be singled out and experience, different type of phenomena, or, even more than that, the street theater that goes along with gang stalking. Right? That stuff, involves information that's very personal. And it might be things that the individual is thinking about or has not done yet, something that is, even considered prophetic. And like I mentioned, that stuff that's time dilation. Okay? You're dealing with a dimensional perspective, and you're dealing with people who have, things that are influencing them that have that information, in my opinion. Okay, I don't believe that the government can do that yet. Even if they could, hit you with some type of 5G DNA resonance beam and decipher what was going on in your brain, they logistically couldn't set up all the things required to pull off the synchronicities the targeted individuals deal with. They don't have that kind of capability. Nobody's that good. Unless you're willing to believe the government has the ability to know the future or to travel around dimensionally, they're going to need some assistance with that. And if you're one of those, targeted individuals who's experienced higher forms of harassment, you know what I'm talking about. They don't have the manpower or the infrastructure to set things up that intricately, that fast, depending on what you're dealing with. Okay, even if you believe that. And in the case of Mr. Marlowe, what was he thinking? Well, he was obviously hearing their voices in his head. Okay? Now, like I said, we're going to look at the technological aspect. Could they do something like that with V2K? Sure they could. Absolutely. Okay? Why would someone conclude at that point, if they believe that they were being targeted to become an active shooter, that just because they were hearing something that sounded like their neighbors or whatever, and I'm not saying there can't be neighborhood campaigns, but just think about what I'm saying. When you're a targeted individual and when you're getting attacked, you have to process information very carefully. And when you use syllogistic reasoning to come up with conclusions like somebody did something weird, so now they're a government employee, you could be getting set up for something that is really not going on. Okay, there was a gal that was in her late 70s. She was murdered. Her husband was over 80 years old. a 15-year-old girl was killed and her mother, okay? Did he have enough evidence to say that they were involved in some type of government plan to make him an active shooter with telepathy or even V2K? No way. No way. I don't believe that at all. Well, now let's look at the spiritual aspect of it, okay? Do you think the demons are smart enough to pull something like that off? I've had comments from people on the program before that I knew what they were thinking, or I knew something that happened in their house or whatever, or a conversation that they had because I said a key word or something like that. And or they would have some type of synchronicity where they would start thinking about something, and then they would go to watch one of my shows, and they're all, yep, there it is. There's the key word. That guy knows what I'm thinking. I wouldn't be able to pick him out of a crowd of two people. Okay, I don't even know what part of the world you guys live in. I can't even find my delivery location sometimes, you know? I deliver food to the wrong house because they'll use the GPS exact location with DoorDash or Uber, and the computer gets the whole thing wrong, and then the neighbors get the food, let alone something like that.
Syllogistic conclusion from a trauma-based psychosis.
Right? You come to conclusions, and I have to give people a break because I know what they're up against. I was watching a show today where this individual was talking about predestination and destiny and all that stuff. And you know what? When you get into the secret societies, that's how they're deceiving all these people. I've talked about how it goes back to Egypt and it involves hidden wisdom and secret knowledge and all that stuff. And that's all this time dilation and all that other stuff. And they confuse individuals into thinking that something is predestined or something is someone's destiny. And they will use that type of information afforded by the spiritual dimension, by that dimensional perspective, to get the individual or the victim to internalize and put significance where it doesn't belong. Oh, it's God. It's destiny. Where do you think that information comes from that fools the people involved in these secret societies that you're dealing with? Whether it's Rosicrucianism or the Freemasons or the Illuminati. They're all connected to Egypt. They're all connected to the secret hidden wisdom, and it comes from the same place. And they'll use that. I don't care if it's deja vu. That'll freak you out. How'd that happen? Oh, I had a dream and it came true. I had a dream 10 years ago, and it finally came true today, and it involved, me eating a cheeseburger, and the weird thing about it is that aliens were telling me about it, and then there was pyramids flying through the air with clouds underneath them and spaceships, and it was the reptilians. That's true. It's gotta be, because I had a dream and it came true. No, they're using it to bamboozle you. And it's a very effective technique. And my point in illustrating all this is you are up against something that is far more powerful, in my opinion, than any human government that's ever existed. If it was just the government, it'd be bad enough. Okay, V2K or something else. Yeah, they've got technology. Yes, they have resources. But I think it's worse than that. And I've talked about the fact that there's a motive behind all this. What do they want? Well, they want you to do something. This is a perfect example. I don't care whether you think it's V2K. I don't care whether you think it's demonic. A 15-year-old girl and her mother are dead. An elderly couple are dead. And I don't think they had anything to do with telepathy or the V2K or anything else. Okay? I don't think there was enough evidence to say that. And even if they were, look what happened to them. We'll just say for all argument's sake that these people were doing it. Well, now what's he going to deal with? If he's a targeted individual and he's locked up in prison, now what's he going to do? Now he's in a cage. They could put him in solitary confinement or something, or accuse him of all kinds of different things in prison, and then they could tamper with his food. There's nothing he can do. He can't escape. He's like a test subject that's been moved from an outdoor container into a box. They can do whatever they want to him. And I want you to think about that. If you start thinking about doing the same thing that Mr. Marlowe did, you don't want to end up in a mental institution. You don't want to end up in prison. Things can always get worse. Processing the information is crucial, and looking at all the options is important. And some of the disinformation that's out there, in my opinion, that speculation, is dangerous. And when you rule out other options, you kind of get shoehorned, you get pigeonholed into this spot, and you kind of get worked into a corner. And that's what they want. They want you to react. They want you to be like a cornered animal. You don't have to be. There are options. Okay? To assume that your neighbors are reading your mind, and that's how all this stuff is working, or the people that are pulling street theater on you, have some type of DNA resonance technology, and they know what you're thinking. There's options. It's not necessarily what's going on. The targeted individual is led to form propositions that are incorrect. You already know that. I've been doing this a long time. Okay. These people are nothing more than puppets, and whatever benefit they seem to have now or think that they are getting is going to be overshadowed by what is coming, and that's not good. Okay. There's a motive behind this, and Mr. Marlowe, unfortunately, and his neighbors are the very example. Okay, that's what they want. They want blood. They want people dead. They want people condemned. And the principalities and powers that are leading mankind into a dark oblivion, into a place of torment and torture, are using all these mechanisms to manipulate, deceive, blind, and control mankind. Did they get Mr. Marlowe? I don't know. I don't know what God's going to do about that. Maybe. I know his neighbors are dead. Whether they were harassing him or not, he's definitely in a worse spot than he was before. You definitely don't want to make it worse. We can all sympathize with Stefan, but it wasn't a solution. And there's a motive. I think that's probably the perfect example of what they want. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.